This tutorial is going to help you round your corners because when we have a keychain, we want to be able to slide it in and out of our pocket easily without it poking into our pockets or anything like that. So you're always going to start by clicking on the dashboard, and we click on Create New Design. And it's kind of hard to see because it's hidden by my little recording device here, but you always need to go down where it says Edit Grid and change it to, we're going to be working in inches for our class. So always go down and change it to inches if it hasn't been done. And then just out of my sight, let me see if I can pull this down here. The snap grid means that it's going to move. Right now it's marked at an 1/8 inch. It's going to move every 1/8 inch when it's putting things together. And I like to knock it down a little bit smaller because it gives me just a little more control. So I'm going to grab 1/32. You can always change that again. Okay. So I'm going to grab just a basic box. And there's a nifty tool. I almost hesitate to show you, but I'm just going to show you how to round the corners of this. There's a nifty tool under here. When you expand this, a lot of times you get more options. So you can actually change some things about the height, width, and length. You can change this step tool, which doesn't do much for a rectangle. But this radius will allow you to put a little bit of a curve on it, which is pretty great, except that in the case of 3D printing, if you look underneath, what that does is you can kind of see the shadow here. That's the only part that's touching. So any part that is not touching, like this little thing right here, is going to need a support to build up. In our 3D printer, when you use a support, that's fine if it's important, but it makes the bottom kind of rough and it doesn't look as nice. So that's one thing that you can do if you need to, but I prefer to do it a different way. The other thing I wanted to show you that I hadn't showed you yet was over here under the viewing box is a switch to flat view or switching to orthographic. So what that allows you to do, if you bring over a box, if I look at my top view, I see just the exact top two-dimensional view. If I click over here, it still kind of shows it to me in a little bit of a perspective. So I like to use it, let's see if I can do this exactly. Here we go. I like to use the one that's not perspective, but the one that's orthographic because it lets me see things a little easier. Okay, so I'm going to take this one off by pressing delete or backspace, depending on what keyboard you have. And I'm going to lower this down and kind of make it look a little more like a size of a keychain that I would want. So this is about 2.5 inches wide, and I'm going to make it about 1 inch tall. That's fine. Okay, now, in order to create a rounded corner, which is also known as a fillet, you have to actually make a new shape to make that happen. So you're going to drag a box, and I'm going to look at my top view, and you're going to drag a cylinder. And if your box is 1 inch by 1 inch, and I can get the numbers to show up by clicking on the corner marks, and then it shows me how big it is. So if that's 1 inch by 1 inch, I need to make the radius on my circle 2 inches by 2 inches, or excuse me, the diameter 2 inches by 2 inches. So I'm going to click on that and get 2 there, click on that and get 2 there. Okay, I'm going to move this out of the way. And then on my circle, when I select it, you can see it's the circle. If I zoom way in, you can kind of see it's actually little lines. It's made of 20 flat lines. So if I bump this way, way, way up to 64, then it looks a lot more circular. Okay. Now what I want to do is let these things overlap so you can kind of see how I'm rounding my corner, and I'm going to use my align tool. So I'm going to click on my circle. I'm going to hold down shift and click on my other box, and I'm going to grab my align tool, and I'm going to align them at the top and at the edge. Okay. Now I'm going to select both of them. Actually, first I'm going to select the circle and turn it into a hole. And now I'm going to hold down Shift and select my box, and I'm going to group those together. So now I have this nice rounded corner, and I can turn that into a hole, which then can cut off the corners of my project. So a little handy thing, I'm going to take this back to a solid. A little handy trick I learned today is that if you make a shape like this and you think you might want to use it on more than one project, you can actually save that shape. So you come over here into your Shapes toolbar, and you're going to go to the bottom where it says Shapes Collection. And I did this earlier, so you can see I actually saved this one here. I'll change this to a different color so you know I'm doing a different one. And you click Create Shape. And if it's not already selected, you have to make sure that you had that piece selected. Let me cancel back out of there to show you. If I didn't have it selected and I click Create Shape, it's going to ask me down at the bottom, you have to select a part. So I have to select that and then click Create Shape. So then it's going to ask me to name my shape. And so if you want to do it with your proper engineering tool, you can call it a fillet. And I'm actually going to call it Fillet 2 because I'm making my second one. And you can say used to round corners if you want to. You don't have to. You can put some tags in it. Fillet and corner. Okay. And then I'm going to save my shape. And it will go in here. And then another handy tool that I learned about when I was browsing YouTube today is you can click the star, and that will save it into your favorites. So can't remember where the favorites are, down at the bottom. So if you like a lot of, if there's particular shapes you like to use, you can put a star on them and then they're there. Okay, so now let's talk about how to utilize this. So one thing I can do, that seems really big, so I can make it smaller. If I hold down Shift, it will allow me to scale it at the same, both sides at the same time. Whoops, undo. Okay, so I can hold that over there and I can say, oh, that's a nice round. I like that. Okay, or you can make it smaller if you want to. I'm going to drag it just a little bit bigger, just so it kind of sticks out higher than my keychain. So now I'm going to actually call it a hole, and I'm going to line it up with my Align tool. So I click, there's going to be a lot of moving around of the Shift button right now. So have that finger on the Shift button handy. Okay, so I'm going to click this box, Shift, and click my fillet. So now I have both of them clicked together, and I'm going to click Align. And I'm going to align them at the top corners. Okay. Now, from here, if I were to, I can drag my box around both of them and group it. I have my rounded corner, but I only have one, and I really need to do all four corners. So I'm going to undo that. And I'm going to use a tool called Duplicate. I could simply click on this and copy by pressing Control C and Control V, and it makes a copy right next to the one that I have. But when you go to try to put it on the other side and you try to pivot it around, I will tell you, I never got it exactly right. I always had to move it a lot, and it never wanted to line up exactly. Okay, so this really cool tool is called Duplicate. So I'm going to click on my fillet. And I'm going to come up here to the Duplicate button, or you can press Control D. Now, there's actually two of them there. Okay, I can actually click and move that, but I just don't want to, I want it to stay exactly where it is. Only one of them is currently selected. So if I click Shift and also click the box, now I've got both of them clicked. And I'm going to come to the flip or the mirror tool. And it says, which way do you want to mirror this? And I can simply click that button there and it will make another one. Okay. Now to mirror this onto the other side, I'm going to click both of these. One, hold down Shift, two, and oops, it grabbed my block also. Okay, you can see it keeps grabbing my whole big box, and I don't want it to do that, so I'm going to try grabbing this one first. Shift, and hold down my other one. So now you can see I only have these two selected, and I'm going to go up to the duplicate again, duplicate, and then I am going to hold Shift down and click the box. So now I have all of them selected, and again I'm going to mirror and send it that direction and say okay. All right, so now you can see I've got my holes on all the corners, and now I can draw a box around all the pieces to select them and click group. So now I've got a keychain that doesn't have any sharp corners. And of course, this is a little bit tall, 0.34, that's pretty big. I probably want to take it down to about a 1/4 inch. Okay, so that's how you're going to round your corners, and then if you have saved your fillet tool, you'll always have it there for future use.